Hello everyone. Today I want to show you a beautiful book by the O'Brien Press. It's called Irish Fairy Tales and Legends, and I just thought with us all staycationing this year, we're probably hopefully travelling to places like the Navan Fort, St. Gullion, Giant's Causeway, and there's so many myths and legends associated with these places. So this is a gorgeous book. So today I'm going to read the Children of Lir. There was once a race of people in Ireland called the Tuatha. They knew about magic and casting spells. One of them, Lir, was a king, and he lived happily with his wife and 4 children. But one dreadful day his wife became ill and died. Lir and the children were heartbroken. "Don't worry, father," his daughter Fionnuala said sometime later. "I will look after my little brothers." "Oh, you are too young," said Lir gently. "Children need a mother. Some day I will marry again." One day in summer, Lir had a visitor. It was Aoife, his wife's sister. She hugged the children and smiled at Lir. Her eyes were dark as elderberries and her skin creamy as milk. "Oh, it's such a sunny day," she said. "Let's eat outside. You must not be sad any more." The children were delighted, and Lir fell in love with her at once. Aoife would make the perfect wife and mother. Aoife too was pleased. "My plan is working," she thought. "Soon I will be queen. Lir is rich and will give me anything I ask for, but those children are a nuisance. When we are married, I will get rid of them." A sudden wind howled round the fort and clouds buried the sun. Soon there was a royal wedding. It lasted for days. Then Lir and his bride travelled the kingdom. "How beautiful his wife is," people said. But one old man shook his head. "Haven't you noticed," he asked, "wherever she walks the wind howls and the clouds bury the sun. This woman will bring trouble." But they only laughed at him. "Don't be silly, it's just the weather," they said. As Lir and his new wife returned home, Aoife went inside to try on her new jewels and robes. Lir walked contentedly outside his fort, and his 4 children were playing on the lawn. "How good they are," he thought to himself, "and how quickly they are growing. I must spend more time with them." So every day after that he played with the children and spent a little less time with his wife. Aoife noticed. She began to get restless. She did not enjoy swimming or fishing with children. She felt bored and left out. Lir was rich. He could go anywhere, do anything, get anything that he wanted. Why did he have to stay at home with the children? And why did she have to stay at home when he rambled off on some stupid adventure with them? Lir loved them, that was why. Maybe more than he loved Aoife. As time went on, Aoife grew more and more jealous. "Only for the children," she thought, "I would have Lir all to myself. I must get rid of them." One day she spoke sweetly to her husband. "My dear," she said, "the children are growing up now and don't need us. It will be good for them to get away from home. We could have such wonderful times together, just the 2 of us." "No, Aoife," Lir replied. "Those children are a part of me. I would die without them." Time after time she tried to persuade him, but it was no use. Aoife became desperate. A terrible idea took hold in her head. It choked her heart and smothered her brain until one day she thought of a dreadful plan. It was summer, and all was still in the drowsy heat. Lir dozed in a shady corner as Aoife called to him. "I'm taking the children to swim in the lake. It's so warm." Lir was pleased. He had begun to think lately that Aoife was not completely happy. She hadn't played with the children for such a long time. Lazily waving goodbye, he settled down for a snooze. The children enjoyed the chariot ride, and soon they were tumbling down the hill and into the lake. Laughing and splashing, they chased each other over the cool fresh water. Heat simmered in the bushes across the lake, and everything was still. It was too hot even for the birds. Suddenly Aoife, lifting up her arms, began to chant strange words. The sun darkened. A chill wind whipped over the waves. Fionnuala watched uneasily. She turned to her brothers, but they were staring at her in horror. "Fionnuala, your hair! What's happening to your hair?" Fionnuala looked down. Her long dark hair no longer swirled around her in the water. Even as she looked, white feathers grew over her shoulders, covering her skin, and in place of her arm were 2 wings. Too frightened to scream, Fionnuala looked back at her brothers, and she was just in time to see their rosy cheeks disappear as they too were covered in smooth white feathers. Fionnuala and her brothers had been changed into swans. There was a mighty clap of thunder. Spears of rain lashed around her, but Aoife didn't care. Her spell had succeeded, and now she had nothing to fear. Then one of the swans began to speak, for Aoife's magic had failed to destroy their voices. "What have you done to us?" Fionnuala cried. "Why have you done this wicked deed?" Aoife laughed. "Lir is mine now, all mine," she screeched, "and you will remain as swans for 900 years. You will spend the first 300 on this lake, 300 in the Sea of Moyle, and the last 300 on Inishglora in the west. You will never be human again until you hear the sound of a holy man's bell. Now get away from here. I will never have to look at you again." And though the swans called to her and begged her to have pity on them, she would not listen. She climbed up the hill by Loch Derravara and hurried away. The sun shone again. The water lapped gently on the shore, but Fionnuala and her brothers could only huddle together. They tried to comfort each other. "Our father will save us," Fionnuala said. "You know how much he loves us. He has all the powers of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Don't cry, little brothers. We will soon be home again." When she reached the fort, Aoife tiptoed over to the sleeping Lir and gently kissed him. "Wake up, dear," she said. "I have sad news. Your 4 children drowned in the lake. But don't fret. I will take care of you. Now we are alone at last." "Drowned? How? What happened? Oh, my children, my children!" And flinging Aoife aside, Lir ran like a madman towards the lake, yelling their names, gasping and sobbing. But when he reached it, there was nothing to be seen except the softly lapping water and 4 swans. Lir threw himself to the ground, rocking back and forth in sorrow and despair. And then a voice spoke to him. "Father, don't grieve. We're not dead. Aoife has changed us into swans. It is Fionnuala who speaks." Lifting his head, Lir almost forgot to breathe as the biggest swan told him of his wife's evil deed. "Oh, my children," he cried, "my poor beautiful children. But don't despair. I will make Aoife take back this wicked spell. Stay here. I will be soon back." And he rushed off to the fort. Aoife sat calmly brushing her hair. "What have you done?" cried Lir, shaking her by the shoulders. "Are you crazy? You know how much I love those children. How could you do such a thing? Come at once and take back that wicked spell." "No, Lir," Aoife replied. "You are all mine now. Your children have gone. Who cares about a few swans?" Lir begged and pleaded and threatened and screamed, but Aoife went on brushing her beautiful hair. Then Lir called on the powers of his god ancestors, and in a terrifying rage she changed Aoife into a demon. With a terrible screech she vanished into the air, leaving only a trickle of ashes and the stench of burning hair. Lir rushed back to the shore and told the children all that had happened, and though he tried and tried, he could not free them from Aoife's awful spell. He cried as he touched them, stroking their feathers. Now there was no power on earth that could save them. All that day, Lir stayed on the shore, and when night came he would not go home. "You will get cold," his servant said, "and it looks like rain tomorrow. You can come again." But he would not leave. So they built a little fire to keep him warm. Friends came to keep him company, for the news had spread, and when morning came, more and more people arrived to comfort Lir, and some came just to stare. Eventually, Lir had a hut built on the shore. He slept here at night and spent every day with the swans. He mourned for his children, but at least he could speak to them. Years passed and Lir grew old. One wet winter he caught his cold. His poor tired heart could not take any more and he died. The swans were heartbroken. In time the hut rotted away and people stopped coming to the lake. Winters came and went. All the time Fionnuala cared for her brothers and tried to keep them cheerful and brave. At last, 300 years were over. The people who had known Lir and his children were long since dead. One morning, the swans left the lake and flew north to the Sea of Moyle, and only one little girl looking upwards wondered if that was the Children of Lir. The Sea of Moyle was harsh and wild. North winds lashed with icy splinters. Snow whirled so fast that the swans could scarcely see. And time after time they were dashed apart, their feathers stiff with ice. Winter gales hurtled them towards sharpened rocks, but whenever she could, Fionnuala kept her brothers under her wings, singing to them the songs they knew when they were children. She reminded them of happy times that were past and the wonderful days that they had spent with their father. And somehow they survived these 300 long bitter years. When their time was up, the swans gladly flew southwest. They landed on the island of Inishglora. The wild Atlantic was rough and cold, but nothing could be worse than what they had already endured. Here summer brought gentle winds and sunshine to the warm bones. By now the swans were tired and old. They had almost forgotten how to speak, but still Fionnuala encouraged them and reminded them of Aoife's words that one day they would be set free by the sound of a holy man's bell. And so time went on. One evening, as the sun set, Fionnuala lifted her head listening. Yes, there it was again, the clear, sweet ringing of a bell. Surely this is the sound we've been waiting for, she cried. Let's go ashore at once. They stumbled onto the strand. Clumsily they climbed up a steep grassy path to a group of stone huts. A man came out. He was surprised to see swans at his door, but when Fionnuala spoke, he staggered back. Don't go, she begged. My brothers and I need you. Please listen. And she told him their story and all that Aoife had said. You are safe now, said the man when he heard. That was the sound of Holy Patrick's bell. I will take care of you for the rest of your days. The good man kept his word. He fed the swans and made them a cosy nest. Night after night he listened as they told him of times long gone and all that had happened since. Then, one day as he reached out to touch them, their feathers fell away. Fionnuala and her brothers were human again, but they were 900 years old. The good man had scarcely blessed them when they died, and tenderly he buried them in one grave. That night 5 stars swooped across the glittering sky. He knew then that Lir and his children were together again in some beautiful far-off place. The end.